It's March, officially spring, and the garden, well, it's waking up. What a marvellous time of year.
Keep watching for tips on fabulous flowering shrubs. Get into grips with fertilisers, and let's start sowing for a blooming marvellous summer.
Welcome to Step by Step Gardening with me, David Domoney, at Blue Diamond Garden Centre's Bridgemere Show Gardens. Nearly every episode of Step by Step, I add a little bit in on how you can make your plants healthier. Most of it involves the soil in your garden or the compost in your pots. And in this particular episode, I'd like to take a look at fertilisers, which have key components that help with the health of plants and the performance as well. The one thing though, is when you go into a garden centre and look at the sheer range of different types of fertiliser, you'd be excused to think that you need a chemistry degree to understand any of it. So I thought I'd take this opportunity in this episode to give you a bit of a masterclass on fertilisers that you see in garden centres, so you can make the right choice of the fertiliser for the right use and right plant in your own garden. Okay, let's start off and take a look at what we've got. First of all, there are organic options and then there are non-organic options. And the difference really is that the organic options have been created from things that were formerly living, like bone meal, fish blood and bone, chicken manure, etc. And non-organic have been synthetically created. All of these fertilisers, irrespective of their name, whether it's in a bottle or a bag, contain the similar ingredients, just different proportions. And basically, to keep things very simple, there are three main ingredients that have an impact on your plants: nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Nitrogen, for instance, well, that helps stem and leaf growth. So say for instance your lawn, you're applying a fertiliser in spring for growth. You would put down a high nitrogen fertiliser because it is good for the blades of grass. Then you've got phosphorus, which specialises in supporting the plant for its root system. If you're putting in a new tree or shrub, bone meal is pretty good because it contains a high level of phosphorus, which is good for roots. And finally, you have potassium, which is really good for fruit and flowers, helping yield, helping flavour, helping production, and of course, health of the plant at the same time. If you're growing your tomatoes and they're starting to set, you'd use a tomato food, and guess what? That's a high percentage of potassium in it to help them fruit. And it's basically that. If you know the letters and the proportions, you can work it out for yourself. Let's just take a look at the bone meal, for instance, on the side of the packet there. There we are, NPK. They always put it in the same order. So the first number is nitrogen, second one is phosphorus, and third one is potassium. And here in bone meal, it says 5 for the nitrogen, 10 for the phosphorus, and nothing for the potassium, which means nitrogen, some for the foliage, a lot for the roots, as the 10 in the middle states. It also tells you on the side of the box as well, strengthen roots, so that works pretty well. On this one here, same thing, NPK. Looking across here, this is 5 for nitrogen for the foliage, it is 3 for the phosphorus for the roots, and it is 5 of the potassium for fruit and veg. But when you look at others where it's the equal number, NPK, in this case 2, 2, 2, you know it is a good general purpose. It's as simple as that. So NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, foliage, roots and fruit and flower. All you've got to do is just look at the numbers on the packaging. I've now empowered you to be able to walk into that whole wall of fertilisers for you to know what the proportions are and choose something that's right for you. Now you know the components in the fertilisers and what they do for your plants, how quick can you get them into the plant? Well, first of all, plants that are normally in a border in March, it's a good time to add some fertiliser, and you'd want slower release, so it's giving a little bit out right the way through the growing season. However, you might have some plants that are putting on a growth spurt or starting to produce fruit and flower where you want to give them a bit of an instant boost. So to explain, I've got 4 different forms of fertiliser, some soluble, some liquid and some granular. In the first jam jar here, I've put pelleted organic fertiliser, chicken manure. In the second one here, I've got continuous release fertiliser. In this one here, I've got water soluble fertiliser, and finally I've got the liquid fertiliser in this one. Now I'm going to add water to each of these, give them a little swill and see how they perform. I've not actually put together the right concentrations in here, I'm just showing these as an example, but I would say it's always best to feed plants, but it's even better not to overfeed them. So always follow the instructions on the boxes or the packages exactly to the letter. Now the first one here, the chicken manure pellets, it's gone slightly cloudy, but hasn't really broken down that much. Naturally, organic fertilisers rely on microorganisms within the soil in a very natural way, slow and steady, breaking down the fertiliser for the plants to take up. Next one is the continuous release. It's gone slightly cloudy, but the integrity of the individual pellets in there are pretty much held. It's almost like a gobstopper. It needs warmth and moisture over a period of time. That's exactly what it's aiming to do, is a slow release of the fertiliser. The soluble has almost completely dissolved, so that liquid can go into the ground, quickly taken up by the roots to feed the plant. So it's quite instant. And over here we have got the liquid, pretty much as you would expect, has dissolved straight away for a fast, effective way to dilute, get into the soil and straight up into the plant.
At this time of year, if there's one job you can do, is to feed your plants and give them a gentle boost of nutrients as they start to wake up and get growing. Remember to always follow the instructions to give your plants exactly what they need.
Well, there you have it. Whether it's fertiliser for foliage, roots or fruit and flower, there's always an option, and you know how to read the side of the packets. And also, whether it's slow release or whether it's instant uptake for plants, there's different options there too. And of course, there's always an organic option as well. I hope you found that helpful.
I will be mentioning fertilisers all through this episode, so keep watching for the right feeding tips for seeds, our plant of the month, and bulbs and tuberous plants. Our glorious summer displays are often down to bulbs and tubers, and what a riot of colour and variety they offer. And now is the time to pick them up from the garden centres and get them started. So here are some that you can get going in March.
Now the first summer flowering plant I'm going to introduce you to is the dahlia. There's such a selection of different types, cactus, pom-pom. If you think you don't like dahlias, have a look at the rack when you get into the garden centre. I'll guarantee you'll find something that you like. Now, it's not in fact a bulb. Let me just show you what you get. This is the most economical way to buy them, and it's the most fun. There's a bit of plastic at the back, and take a look at that. It looks like something from an alien movie, but it is in fact an absolute marvel of nature. This is in fact a tuber. It looks pretty much like a potato, and potatoes are tubers too, so that's why there's a similarity. But inside here is a great deal of energy that's stored by the plant under the ground. And as you can see, the top there, that's where the stem, that's where the plant grew from. And these wispy outer parts of the root here is what anchors it into position. And this is the marvel of the dahlia, because you look at the root, it looks like an ugly duckling. But when you see what it becomes, a beautiful swan. Now, they originate from South America, so they prefer warmer climes. It's not the type of thing that you'd be planting outside in the frost. But March is a great time to choose what you like from the garden centre, buy it, pot it up into a container to get it growing. Normally they flower from July into August, but if you pot them up and grow them on and then put them out when the frosts have gone, you're liable to get earlier flowers and a very established plant. Right, let me show you what to do. Get hold of a container and inside fill it with some peat-free compost. Now, with a lot of bulbs you plant them quite deep down, but with these tubers here, see where the stem, it's easy to see if you look at the bottom. In fact, all the different types that you buy, you'll see a point where it actually looks like there's flower stems that have been cut. The secret is to plant it slightly proud of the soil. So literally make a little delve in the soil. Be very careful, you don't want to be knocking any of these off, and then lay it down into the container, bed it around, and then I lightly break up the compost. Whenever I'm putting compost in, I'll give a little hand rub, and you're breaking it up and spreading it evenly. And then with your fingers lightly compress, keeping that stump above the soil, lightly compress around the outside. This is just to get it started. This plant's not going to be remaining in this container. What I'm going to do is plant it out so the roots can really spread themselves out. It's always best to label the plant, especially if you're planting quite a few of them. Then you don't have to wait until they're in flower to work out which one's which. And you'll find in your frost-free area, before you put it out, you'll have had quite a bit of greenery. So when it goes into the ground, give it a fertiliser that helps the leaves grow to become a stronger and bigger plant. But then, when it starts to set its buds to flower, switch to potash, and that will give the energy for high-performance flower production. Right, I'm going to move it into a frost-free area and give this one a water. Now, another plant from my smorgasbord of summer flowerers comes in the pick and mix. Now, as gardeners, we're all kids at heart, especially in spring, but instead of choosing pick and mix sweets, I've got a slim fast option. Here are begonias. Look at these gorgeous begonias here. Now, you don't just pick randomly in a pick and mix, you go through to find the biggest and best as part of the selection. And these begonias are beautiful because it is a plant that continuously gives spectacular flower, lovely foliage throughout the summer period. And just like the dahlias, they're so easy to get started. They look like hairy bulbs, but they are in fact tubers, just like potatoes and dahlias. And there is a right way up. And the bottom bit here that's rounded, actually it's got most of the roots on, is a bit of a giveaway, that goes down, whereas the slight delve in the middle, that remains proud of the soil. So to get them started, you can either plant them in containers. I have a tendency just to use a seed tray that has got multi-purpose compost that's mixed in with a little bit of perlite. Now that adds an extra bit of drainage, and if you're really interested to know how to control drainage when you're putting in plants, go back to our last episode, our February episode, where we cover the difference in between vermiculite and perlite and composts. But when it comes to putting in, couldn't be easier. It's quite light, just give them a twist. What you're looking to do is to bed them in so the middle curve is just proud of the soil. For ones that are slightly bigger, you can just move the soil away rather than twist them in. And that's it, about 2 centimetres apart, because you're going to be wanting to be able to take them out to pot them up later. And buying them like this, rather than in pots and containers later in the year from the garden centres, you're saving money because, well, you're doing a lot of the work of growing. a little bit of compost around the outside, and then give them a water, and it'll start waking them up from dormancy. So these will grow in here in a frost-free area to get them started, and when they produce quite a bit of leaf, don't leave them in there too long because you need to separate the roots as you take them out. You can move them from this container into other containers, and it is as simple as that. When you start to see the foliage grow, it'll have sent out some roots as well. That's a good time to transplant into individual pots. You won't need to feed, don't worry about it. The seed tray needs no feeding, and if you put it into the pot, that'll have enough food in the compost to keep it going to produce plenty of foliage. But when you plant it into its final destination, tub, container, hanging basket, that's when you want to feed with high potash for a really good performance of flower. Next up is lilies, and this will give you some spectacular colour. Look at that. This particular one is Foxley. It's an Asiatic lily, which means very bright, spectacular colours and a slight fragrance. And in the back, unlike the others I'll be showing you with tubers, these are more traditional bulbs. Now, March, of course, in your garden you'll be seeing crocus and daffodils. A little bit later you'll see the tulips. Now, they are spring flowering bulbs that you plant in autumn, and episode 4 of Step by Step Gardening is a great cover for all the things you need to do for planting in autumn for spring colour. This one is planting early on in the year for summer colour, and they're pretty hardy. You can plant them straight into the ground now. Sunny position, well drained. Occasionally they like a little bit of shade over the roots, but I kid you not, this will send out a tall shoot up to about 1 metre tall with a starburst of flowers. And I'm going to grow these in a container. Now, the secret about growing any bulbs in a container is making sure they don't get waterlogged. So I've got a hole at the bottom of this pot, but it's full of compost, a bit heavy to lift up, but I'll show you. Decent drainage hole at the bottom, and add some crocks in there too. If you've got very tall lilies, you might want to put a few more stones at the bottom of the pot, not just for drainage, but also to add a bit more stability with the height of the plant that you're putting in. Now, in here, I've put in bulb fibre. It's a specific potting compost that aids a bit of drainage that's great for bulbs. If you're planting these in a border, you can space them 15, 30 centimetres apart. However, if you're planting in a container, you can plant them much closer together. It's a good principle for most bulbs as you're planting in a container. It gives more of an impact in a small space. So I'm going to put into here the whole packet. Now, the secret with bulbs is a flower bulb is pretty much like a light bulb. You push and twist. You push and twist a bayonet fitting, screw fitting in, same with the bulb, push and twist. The base of the bulb hits the base of the soil and the bulb fibre over the top. And you'll be surprised how quick you start to see them grow. And as far as feeding these plants are concerned, the compost itself should at least have 2 to 3 months worth of food in there. You don't want to put a high nitrogen food in, because sometimes, because there's such long stems with the flowers on the top, if you put nitrogen, it makes them quite weak and floppy, and you need a bit more support. So don't do a high nitrogen, do a potash feed, and that's specific for the flowers. So you get good stem growth and beautiful flowers on top. And of course, they're an investment in the pot or in the garden as they keep coming up every year. Finally, this is a lovely summer flowering plant, herbaceous perennial, peonies, and I've got 2 really good ones. Francoise Ortegat, and this one here is Coral Sunset. Big flowers, very favoured by the florists. Lovely in herbaceous perennial borders, but these 2 in particular I'm growing in this bed here, which is going to be a cut flower bed. Take a look at this one here, this Francoise one. Lovely full double flower, which means it's got petals right the way through into the middle. A single would be just petals on the outside, and then you can see the anthers in the centre, but this is a full double. Particularly chosen, this one, not just for its deep vermilion shades, but its beautiful fragrance. Whereas over here, Coral Sunset, as you can see, this is classed as a semi-double, meaning that the petals don't close up right in the centre. You can see the heart. This one is also very highly fragrant, but there are different colours. The younger flowers come out with a deep pink, then they go to a lighter peach, and finally they go into the vanilla. It's a most marvellous plant. So let me just see what you get. The same thing, it's a pre-pack, but inside, let me just get this one out here. You can see what you get. Same with this one here. Let's take them out and have a look. Just be as careful as you can when you take them out of these bags. You don't want to knock any buds off or any roots off. It's the same with all of them. There we go. And that's pretty much what you get. A piece of root. This is in fact a rhizome, which means it's a spreading root. But as you can see, it's quite thick, meaning it's full of energy, ready to go. It's easy to see which way up it goes because you've got the bright pink buds. Before I start, because they're such hungry plants as they grow, I'm actually going to put some slow release fertiliser into the soil to help give them food just when they need it as they're growing throughout the season. And bone meal is a pretty good start because it contains quite a lot of phosphorus. It's really good for root development. In fact, anything that you plant into your garden, trees or shrubs, will benefit from a little bit of bone meal going into the hole to help give the plant energy to produce really good roots. You don't need much, about a handful, but the secret is to mix it well in with the soil. Dig the hole, about a handful of bone meal in, and then mix it in. You don't really want the root itself sitting on high concentrates of bone meal because it can scorch, but you lightly dig it into the soil and that'll help give it a good start. I'm planting them about 50 centimetres apart, and I think that should be perfect. The secret when planting is don't plant them too deep. You really want a point where these buds here are just covered by the soil on the top. Bed it in and then lightly fill around the outside and move it slightly over a bit there. That's it. A bit more soil behind. And that's you in position. When you water them, of course, the soil will settle down with the weight of the water. And this one here, don't worry if one variety is slightly thinner to the other, could be just the nature of the plant. But bed it in, try not to break any of the roots off, light covering over the surface, and that bone meal will slowly release as the plant grows. There we go. And let nature do the rest.
Fancy getting busy in the garden? We've got £50 of gift vouchers up for grabs. We're giving away 5 gift vouchers, each worth £50. And entering is completely free. Click on the link in the description and leave a comment below on the gardening topic you'd like me to cover in a future episode. Open to UK residents only, closes on the 1st of April 2026 at 11:59 PM. Terms and conditions apply. The sight of buds bursting into life in spring is wonderful, but what really helps gardeners feel alive at this time of year are the evergreens. And I've got a plant that offers you evergreen interest and colour in early March.
Now our plant of the month for our first March edition, I'm choosing Hebes. You may say to me, hold on David, Hebes flower in summer. Why are you choosing them for March? It's about the foliage. These beautiful compact plants have such beauty in the leaves, not just the shape, but also the colours. During the winter, the colour intensifies, and round about March, they're at their peak. Not only because the foliage looks spectacular, but because the cold months bring out tinges in the foliage of reds and pinks, as this one is here. This is Rose Sparkler. Think of it just as a beautiful foliage. Now take a look at the label with the flower. You've got that to come. Now, they're known as Hebes, although some people call them Veronica. But the name Hebe originates from the goddess of youth, Hebe, and she would carry a jug to feed ambrose and nectar to the Olympian gods. And in a way, these plants are still doing that, but not holding nectar for the gods, but nectar for the bees and the other pollinators that visit the garden. Look at this one here, Caledonia. Bright red, almost claret colour on the underside of the leaf, and wait for it, look at that, the bursts of flowers too. So gorgeous. It's all in the detail. This particular one here, Claret Crush, shows very small, tuft-like foliage on the top. So very beautiful. Here's the flower of that one as well. There's more compact varieties as well. This one here, Pingifolia, particular variety is Sutherlandii. Look how compact that is. But there are also larger, more open varieties, as these ones are here, shrubby Veronicas, bigger than these ones here, which are about 1/2 metre. These reach between 1 metre and 2 metres, with long flowers, panicles of flowers. There are many different varieties in this category, giving beautiful colour. And there are some smaller varieties as well. This one here is Youngii and will only grow to about 20 centimetres. So there's a place for every one of these plants. A tall back border for the large shrubby Veronicas, smaller, almost rockery or front of border for the low Hebes, or great border fillers or containers for the medium-sized ones. Now, they originate from New Zealand, and they've got certain characteristics that lend themselves to positions in the garden. Now, if you wanted to create a Mediterranean garden, because of the beautiful summer flowers, they fit really well. They're also pretty good in containers as almost statement plants, because they're so very compact. Or you can plant them in coastal locations because they have a very high tolerance to salt winds, so it makes them a great coastal plant. But also as border fillers. If you've got gaps within the border that you want colour all year round because they're evergreen, Hebe really ticks the box for that as well. Now I've got something really special for you. A brand new Hebe not seen before. You're going to get to see it at this year's Chelsea Flower Show on the Blue Diamond Garden Centre's garden. Are you ready? It's called Rhubarb Crumble. Have a look at that. Gorgeous, variegated foliage, and the colours, well, it's really in the name. It's got that mixture of red and variegation, something incredibly special. Personally speaking, plants like this, I prefer as a statement, just one plant in a container, maybe either side of the front or back door or on the patio, because you get this lovely tinge of pink. It really comes out strong during the winter months and early spring. Then you get the new foliage, plus you get all the flower as well. It's all year round effect. Now, taking care and feeding Hebes couldn't be easier. If they're established in a border, they're more or less self-sufficient, but it's always best to give them a boost, and March is a great time for that. A general purpose granular fertiliser applied onto the ground, or if you're potting them into containers, mix a bit of it into the container as well, and as it slowly releases over time, it'll give your Hebes a boost.
And we will be having a special step-by-step gardening Chelsea special coming up in May. Last episode I got started with my seed sowing, and I'm pleased to report that the tomato seeds that I sowed last month have germinated and are just beginning to grow their first true leaves. And the chilli seeds are also growing well. My sweet peas are growing, some faster than others. And the seed potatoes have started off in January, little shoots are starting to chit. I will be able to show you their next step in our second March episode later this month. But meanwhile, I'm ready to sow more seeds.
Now we're into March. Almost every week a different type of seed is ready to be sown, and early March, one of my favourites are these broad beans. Look at them. A little embryo of life, dried in a dormant state, waiting to take on moisture to start to swell the seed. And they're so tasty and such an easy crop, and incredibly healthy too, and very good to sow now. In fact, they're so tough you could sow them straight into the ground. Personally speaking, I grow them in containers, bring them on into young plants, and then put them into ground, so I've got a strong plant already in. Now, the one good thing about broad beans is they're big seeds, therefore they're easy to handle. And if you take a look at them closely, there's a little slit just in each bean, and you want to have that facing downwards. The other thing, beans don't really like to be disturbed too much, so I like to grow them in pots that you can actually plant the whole pot in the ground and the pot will just rot away, rather than having to fiddle about getting the beans out. You can grow them in papier-mâché pots, toilet rolls, or these are fibre pots here. What I've got here is normal multi-purpose compost rather than the specialist seed, because beans, certainly these beans, broad beans, are tough enough. They're different from the French beans and the runner beans, which come from much warmer climes. Broad beans are tough.
Broad beans originated from the Eastern Mediterranean.
Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, you really want the slit facing down, so I dib a little hole. You want them down in the soil by about 5 centimetres, something similar to that, or just in the middle of the container here, making sure the little mark is down. It's a simple job, very pleasurable job. I had my son planting some of these up in the greenhouse at the weekend. It's marvellous to get children involved, especially seeing their excitement when something germinates for the first time. Take your time, a little hole, check you got it the right way. Just firm the compost down lightly at the top. There we go. They don't need as much warmth as other seeds, so just a frost-free area on a windowsill or something similar to that, or even in the greenhouse, and just leave them. You'll see them germinate depending how warm it is, and then after they've established and the root systems have grown, it's a perfect position to be able to cut off the container, plant straight into the ground. Another good crop to grow in March is sweet corn. I love it. Picking fresh corn on the cob, bringing it in, cleaning it up, boiling it, and the flavour is great. And it's healthy. Unless you put a lot of butter on it, it's worth it. Here they are. Look at that. They don't look very appealing. Looks like someone's teeth, but they're not. They're all shriveled up. But each one of them, when they take on the moisture, will swell and start to grow. And every one of these will grow hundreds and hundreds more. Ever such an easy crop to grow. Now, the secret with sweet corn is obviously they like it a bit warmer. So we start off by germinating them with a bit of warmth, and they don't get planted out until all the risk of frost is absolutely gone. If you haven't got much space, you want things a little bit more convenient, you can get hold of these little seed pellets. If you take a look, they're small discs that almost appear to be squashed down. There's peat-free growing media inside of those, and when dropped in water, they will expand into little pots. Literally, just drop them in. In a short time, they expand into these. And there's a little membrane around the outside that's holding the coir together. And it enables you not to have the process of pricking them out, taking them out from one seed tray into another. Instead, you can take this whole thing and pot it on in its next stage. So, technical piece of equipment, the pencil, never underestimate it for seeds. Dib a little hole in the little seed container, push the seed into the heart of it. I usually push the side a little bit here, moves and breaks up the compost, and then you can firm down the top. Let's do this one here. Now, if you're planting sweet corn, the ideal depth is about 2.5 centimetres. Just get that in there like that. So you want to make sure that the compost is over the seed itself, and the seed is nestled right in the middle there. Now you can put them back in your seed tray like this and put a propagator lid on the top. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it does need a little bit of heat and light. So put it on a warm windowsill to get it going. Alternatively, you can take them and put them in a heated propagator for an even heat to initiate germination. Now, as soon as they start to grow, you'll see the roots growing out of the sides here, and of course the young leaves at the top. When you see quite a few roots, then you plant it into another container, and they'll grow in that container in readiness for the end of the frost, where you can plant them outside in a sunny, well-drained position. Doesn't have to be just about vegetables growing at this time of year. It can also be flowers as well. In fact, March is a very good time to start sowing under a little bit of heat plants like cosmos. Now, I'm going to use a seed tray for these seeds, and for compost, if you don't want to have big bags of compost, you can buy this seed and cutting compost that actually comes already dehydrated, and you just add water to bring it back to life. And here's what it looks like now. Just a solid block. I'll give it a bash around like this, and there you have it. Perfect compost inside. There we go. Now, when something has been compacted, or you bought compost from bags that have been in a stack in the garden centre, sometimes they do get a little compressed. And because it's seeds, I like to make sure that the compost has no lumps in it. Make sure that it's lovely and fluffy for those young seed roots to grow into. Then just prepare the seed bed, taking time with the back of your hand, just firm, level bed in your seed tray. It's time for the seed. Now, let's take a little look at them. As you can see, they're long, thin seeds. Almost look like grass heads there. They're big enough to handle. So I just take one, just lay it in to the compost like that. Equally space them, just bed them into the compost. Work your way around. Loosen up some of the compost in the bag. And then do a light covering evenly over the surface, so they're not too deep and they have been covered with moisture. So when we water it, the seed can easily access the moisture from above and below. And they always do better with a cover seeds for two reasons. One, that the propagator lid, as we call it, effectively aids keeping a bit more warmth in, by another degree or something like that. But more importantly, stops the seeds fully drying out, because what happens as the moisture rises and evaporates, it condenses on the inside of the lid and then returns back to the soil. And when they start to grow and you need a bit of ventilation, there's a little bit of a ventilator on the top. So I move that into a warm area, nice windowsill, bright windowsill or something similar to that. And very shortly, in about anything between 8 and 15 days, you'll see germination of these seeds in readiness for them to grow and be pricked out later. So there you are, more seeds sown. And in a later episode, I'll show you how they're getting on and what the next steps are. I love spring, and it's the ideal time to get out and really start enjoying the garden. Well, you've heard some of my plans of what I'm going to do in my garden for summer. Let's find out what other people are planning.
Got a little house, and I've got pots at the front and pots around my back garden. Love it, like all this.
I've planted quite a few things on my allotments at the moment, so I've got like onions in, garlic, raspberries in as well. But inside I'm starting off some seedlings, finishing off my sweet peas, getting ready to go outside. I've mulched everywhere with my leaf mould, and I'm starting to just change the pots from the winter pots into the spring and summer pots.
Well, I like palms.
So I've got a few palms in the garden, and I like unusual plants because I plant a few things that's a little bit of unusual.
I'm going to do some gladiolas this year because my daughter's keen on doing flower arranging, so we thought we'd do that this time.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, there's 2 episodes taking place in March, and this is the first one. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more great gardening content. And if you turn on your notifications, we'll let you know when a new video comes about. Thanks for watching.